Today, we're exploring the fascinating story of Canadian Christmas traditions, an amazing mix of British, French, German, Indigenous, and immigrant cultures, all woven together by Canada's unique climate and geography. The Christmas tree. The Christmas tree tradition came from Germany, where evergreen symbolized life persisting through dark winters. German immigrants brought this custom to Canada in the 1700s, 1800s, but it exploded in popularity after Queen Victoria and Prince Albert popularized it in Britain. By the 1860s to 1870s, Christmas trees were common in Canadian homes. Here's where it gets interesting. In 1900, Toronto became one of the first cities worldwide to use electric Christmas lights. Before electricity, candles on trees caused frequent house fires. By the 1920s to 1930s, electric lights became standard in middle-class homes. What's uniquely Canadian is how the tradition adapted to the country's vast forests and cold climate. Families made trips into forests to find perfect trees, a whole tradition with hot chocolate, sleigh rides, and family bonding. Canada also became a major Christmas tree exporter. Letters to Santa and Ho Ho Ho! This is completely, uniquely Canadian. In 1974, Montreal postal workers started receiving letters to Santa and decided to answer them on their own time. By the early 1980s, Canada Post formalized the program and created the brilliant postal code HOHOH, fitting the Canadian format while spelling ho ho ho. Canada Post receives over 1 million letters annually from 30-plus countries, and volunteers reply to every single one in over 30 languages, including Braille. They personalize responses. If a kid mentions skating practice, Santa acknowledges it. This became part of Canada's national identity. Canada is where Santa lives, where the North Pole is, where the magic happens. Christmas foods across Canada. There's no single Canadian Christmas dinner. It varies dramatically by region and culture. Quebec, the centerpiece is réveillon, a feast after midnight mass. The star is tourtière, a spiced meat pie that's central to French-Canadian Christmas. Every family has their own recipe passed down through generations. English-Canadian households, traditional British-style roasted turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, and cranberry sauce became standard in the early 1900s. Indigenous influences. Many First Nations and Métis communities incorporated traditional foods, wild game like caribou, moose, and deer, plus bannock bread and local berries. Immigrant communities added layers. Ukrainian Canadians brought kutia and their 12-dish Christmas Eve supper. Italian Canadians introduced the Feast of the Seven Fishes. German communities contributed Stollen and Lebkuchen. What happened over generations is beautiful blending. A typical Canadian Christmas dinner today might have turkey alongside tourtière, Ukrainian cabbage rolls, Italian cookies, and Asian-inspired appetizers. Families mix and match based on heritage and preferences. Christmas stockings evolution. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, stockings were literal wool socks hung by the fireplace. They contained modest gifts, an orange, genuinely exciting in Canadian winters, nuts and shells, a peppermint stick, maybe one small toy. For many families, this represented real sacrifice. As Canada became more prosperous in the 1920s to 1930s, manufactured toys became common. By the 1950s to 1960s, decorative Christmas stockings with embroidered names became standard and contents grew more elaborate. But something touching remained. Including an orange in stockings persisted even when oranges were no longer rare, becoming a sweet nod to earlier generations. Winter activities as holiday traditions. Canada's climate made winter activities indispensable from Christmas. Ice skating became closely tied to celebrations. Communities organized skating parties around Christmas time. The Rideau Canal Skateway, the world's largest skating rink, built on this tradition. Sleigh rides were both necessary transportation and recreation. The romantic image of sleigh rides through Canadian winter became part of Christmas imagery. The Toronto Santa Claus Parade, starting in 1905, became one of the world's most famous. It happened in late November, often in cold, snowy conditions, but huge crowds turned out anyway, distinctly Canadian in embracing winter weather. The rise of Christmas shopping culture. Department stores like Eaton's, Simpson's, and Hudson's Bay Company revolutionized Christmas in the early 1900s. They created elaborate window displays that became attractions themselves. Families made special trips downtown just to see them. Eaton's introduced Santa arriving at the store to kick off shopping season, creating the Eaton Santa Claus Parade in 1905. Stores created Santa's grottos where children could visit him. This seemingly timeless tradition was actually created by department stores. The Eaton's Christmas catalog, known as the Wish Book, shaped Christmas for generations, especially rural families. Children would circle toys they hoped for. The catalog essentially taught Canadians how to celebrate modern, consumer-oriented Christmas. By the 1950s-1960s, commercial Christmas was in full swing. Shopping malls multiplied the department store experience with elaborate decorations and multiple Santas. Multicultural influences. This is what truly makes Canadian Christmas unique. Each immigration wave brought new traditions that blended into broader culture. Ukrainian Canadians brought Sviata Vechera, the 12-dish Christmas Eve supper on January 6th, featuring katia, borscht, and vareniki. Many celebrated twice, December 25th Canadian style and January 6th Ukrainian style. Italian Canadians introduced the Feast of the Seven Fishes, panettone, and emphasis on multi-generational family gatherings with abundant food. Chinese Canadians often adopted secular Christmas while maintaining Lunar New Year. Chinese restaurants being open Christmas Day became a tradition itself. Portuguese, Greek, Polish, Caribbean, and South Asian communities all added their flavors. Greek korabiedes cookies, Polish oplatek wafer sharing, Caribbean rum-soaked cake, and South Asian influences from Christian communities. Walk through Canadian neighborhoods and you see this diversity celebrated. Go to a Canadian Christmas party and the food table has tourtière next to cabbage rolls, next to Italian cookies, next to samosas. This isn't unusual, it's normal. Canadian multiculturalism meant these traditions were preserved and celebrated rather than assimilated away. The term holiday season acknowledged December includes Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and other celebrations. What makes Canadian Christmas distinct? After examining all these influences, what's actually Canadian? Climate and geography. Canadian Christmas is defined by winter in ways most countries isn't. Snow, cold, ice skating, winter activities are integral. There's particular coziness from the contrast between harsh outdoor conditions and warm indoor gathering. Bilingualism. The French-English blend created something unique. Quebec traditions like réveillon and tourtière spread nationally, while English Canadians maintained British-influenced traditions. Multiculturalism. Unlike more homogeneous countries, Canada actively encouraged diverse immigration and promoted multiculturalism. Christmas traditions from dozens of cultures exist side by side and influence each other. Indigenous presence. The blending of Indigenous winter traditions with Christmas, the painful history of forced Christianization, and contemporary Indigenous communities navigating their relationship with Christmas creates a unique complexity. Neither British nor American. Canadian Christmas includes elements seeming British to Americans and American to British people, but also things that are neither. Pride in uniquely Canadian elements like the HOH-OHO postal code represents desire for distinct identity. Regional differences. Atlantic, Prairie, West Coast, and Northern Christmas all have different characters, yet share common Canadian elements. Hockey, some French-Canadian influence, acknowledgement of winter, multiculturalism. Canadian Christmas will keep evolving. New immigrant communities continue adding traditions. Technology changes how Canadians experience Christmas. Climate change may affect winter traditions. But the core, gathering during the darkest, coldest time, sharing food and warmth and light, acknowledging religious and secular meanings, making space for diverse traditions, will probably endure.